Please welcome Representative Colin Allred.
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, this is great. It's different from what I usually do. So.
Yeah, they're fun, right?
Now you guys are it's a little better than the house right now.
Just slightly.
Yeah.
That's not saying a lot. That's keeping the bar pretty low. You have such an interesting resume. You're a former NFL player, civil rights attorney, congressman, and now currently running against Ted Cruz for the Senate. Yeah, in Texas as a Democrat, which is a bit of an uphill battle. Right now, you're currently polling at 6 points behind. Does it make it worse that you're lagging behind Ted Cruz of all people?
Now listen, I'm confident that on November 5th, the Texans are going to come out and show who we really are. I think we've had enough of 12 years of having, an embarrassment, one of the most divisive senators in the country, somebody who I think fundamentally doesn't appreciate who we really are as Texans. I'm a fourth-generation Texan. I was raised by a single mom in Dallas. You mentioned what I've been able to do, but I was able to do that because I had a lot of help from my community, from my state. I want to make sure that we can have somebody who actually cares about us in the Senate.
You have said before that Texas doesn't have to be embarrassed by their senator. What is the most embarrassing thing about Ted Cruz? Is it that he fled to Cancun while Texans were in the dark and cold, or that time that he didn't feel the booger on his lip for so long? Burned in my memory.
I think there's the antics, right? There's like the, reading Green Eggs and Ham on the Senate floor while you're trying to take health care away from 40 million people. There's stuff like that. There's the fact that he podcasts 3 times a week, which is a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Sitting United States Senator.
Yeah.
But, when you had that little rolly bag when he's coming back from Cancun.
Oh, yes.
It's frustrating going through those little rope lines at any time. When you're going through it alone to explain why you abandoned your state during a statewide crisis, that was really embarrassing.
That was the topper. You're a father of 2, and you were one of the first members of Congress to take paternity leave. First of all, thank you for your service. And secondly, why is that so rare among your colleagues?
Yeah. Well, I didn't know that I was going to be the first when I did it. I thought that it was just a normal thing to do.
You'd think.
And, I grew up not knowing my father. And so for me, I knew that when we had kids, that I was going to do it right. And that starts at the beginning. And there's so much... We've learned a lot. There's so many benefits for when men take leave in those early days. It's better for the men themselves, for their spouses, for their kids, and this is not available to every American. And I want to make sure that it is. And so that's one of the things I've been working on. Because you and I both know that those early days are tough.
Oh yeah.
And when you're welcoming, your bundle of joy is also coming with a whole lot of other things that are changing your life. And I don't think it's right that we're the only major developed country in the world that doesn't have a national paid leave policy.
Could not agree more. Texas was one of the first states to criminalize abortion. What would be your plans to protect and restore women's reproductive rights?
As you mentioned, my wife and I, we've had 2 boys in Dallas in the last 5 years. And I went to every ultrasound appointment, every genetic testing. And those rooms, when you're having those conversations with your doctor, they're too small to have somebody like Ted Cruz in there with you. What's happening in Texas is it's a tragedy. We've had 26,000 women who've had to give birth to their rapist child since these laws went into place. We've had stories like Kate Cox, who was a mother of 2, who had a much wanted 3rd pregnancy. She had to go to the emergency room 4 times. Her doctor said she needed a medically necessary abortion, and she asked her state, can I have it close to home? Because I have a 1- and a 3-year-old at home. And they said no, and they didn't just say no. They said, if you do this, we're going to prosecute you, your doctor, your hospital. We have counties saying you can't drive through the county if you're going to use the roads to access an abortion. I mean, that doesn't sound like freedom to me. And I know one thing about us as Texans is that we believe in freedom. And so, to me, the only way that we can restore this right to Texas women and families is at the federal level by codifying Roe v. Wade. And I'm not saying that's what we'll do.
Voter turnout is going to be critical for you to flip the seat. It's been estimated that 9.5 million registered voters didn't vote in the last election. How will you encourage Texans to get out and vote? And does it rhyme with shmushmorshin?
Well, as you mentioned, I was a civil rights lawyer, but I was a voting rights lawyer specifically before I ran for Congress. And to me, there's nothing more important than getting Texans and our fellow Americans engaged in our democracy. And in Texas, we make it way too difficult to vote. But I want folks to know there's a reason why they're trying to make it harder for you to vote. Why are they trying to take your voice away? Why are they trying so hard to make it difficult for you to be engaged? Don't let them do it, right? And to our young people, it's like one of these things where you wouldn't let your grandparents pick your playlist for the next 6 years. Don't let them pick your senator, right? So. I think it's also true that we have to talk about what's at stake. To me, in Texas, what's at stake is our fundamental freedoms. They've taken away a woman's right to choose the ability to make your own decisions about your body. They're banning books. They're kicking kids out of school because of their hairstyle. I mean, to me, this is fundamentally about who we are as Texans and as Americans. And we have to restore freedom in Texas and across this country. And I think folks are going to come out and stand up for that.
You serve on the Foreign Affairs Committee. We just recently found out that 7 aid workers were killed in Gaza due to Israel airstrikes. Does that give you any hesitation to providing Israel with bombs?
Yeah, I mean, listen, this is a horrible tragedy. And these folks were there to feed folks who are suffering from famine, extreme conditions. They've done it around the world. And to me, it's an incredibly noble venture that they're engaged in to try and make sure that we can combat these conditions. And, as I see it, October 7th was a tragedy, and the response, in many ways, has been incredibly difficult to deal with. Our role, I think, has to be to try and ensure that we, as we're negotiating for an extended ceasefire, that we have these hostages come home, and that we find a way forward in which there's 2 states existing peacefully next to each other. And that has to be our end goal. And we've had, this has been our policy for some time, but in some ways I think it had drifted away. And in a strange way, I think this has highlighted the need that we come back to this, that we make sure that we have a peaceful and independent Palestinian state next to a stable, democratic and Jewish Israeli state. And these folks can coexist, because we cannot continue down this road.
Appreciate the work that you do, and I so appreciate you being on the show tonight. I wish you the best of luck. Representative Colin Allred, thank you.